Let's talk about the upcoming ISO 9001 revision expected to be published in 2025, and what do we know about it right now? All right, well, let's just get right into it, shall we? I want to talk today a little bit about what's happening with the new ISO 9001 2025 standard. That's an estimated name because it's an estimated date. And apologies up front, there's a lot of construction going on. You're going to hear some weird noises in the background here, but so be it. So yeah, let's look at this. Where are we at now? There's a lot of information that's starting to leak out on this new standard. So we want to know, what do we know, what we don't know, etc. But we're starting to get a picture of which direction this standard is heading. So let's take a look at that. First thing is that a design specification is required before ISO does any kind of work on a new standard, and that one is done. They've just completed the design specification for the new standard. That was released about 2 weeks ago. It is not a public document. Essentially, I did manage to get a copy of it, and I read it, and what it is largely is just sort of a justification for why ISO is overruling multiple world votes which said, don't update the standard. The world voted multiple times. I said no. ISO desperately wants to update the standard for two reasons. One, it's clear in the design spec that they're really pushing to align this new standard with the updated Annex SL text. Annex SL text is core text written by a group that's managed by Geneva, but it's a group out of the Netherlands. The text that is written eventually gets embedded into the ISO 9000 standard. It can't be altered. You can vote on it up or down, but you can't edit it. So about a third and maybe more of the standard, about a third we'll say, is not written by TC176. It's written by the Annex SL folks. And so they updated Annex SL, and now they're in a bind, because if they update Annex SL, you got to update ISO 9001, but the world said no. So what are you going to do? You're going to overrule the world vote. So this design spec really emphasizes that fact. They had a lot of business mumbo-jumbo in there to talk about things they're going to do, like technology. They like using the word technology and business systems and stuff like that. Doesn't mean anything, but there's a lot of language about that. And there's one reference to climate change. So climate change is definitely happening, but it's funny that the design spec sort of tampered the expectations on that. They are going to add some language about climate change, but they're trying not to make a big fuss about it because they know everybody hates it. They don't hate climate change. They don't think it belongs in a quality management system standard. So the design specification is done. I have an article on the Oxbridge website about that. You can read it in detail. A lot of scandal there, but in general, it's a secret document. But you don't really need to read it. There's nothing in there that's going to be interesting to you in it, except for what I'm telling you here. What we do know is the design spec will be formally approved at a meeting in Nairobi in October of this year, 2023. And at the same meeting, or at the same time, that essentially is going to mean that they're voting to proceed with the revision of ISO 9001-2015. Again, over the objections to the world, they're just going to push ahead with it. Anyway, so the design spec is done. What's the next step, though, assuming that they proceed? The next step will be they have to craft a working draft, or a WD. My estimation is that they'll probably have that drafted by January of 2024. Based on the fact that the Nairobi meeting is in October 2023. So by January, they should have the working draft written. They have a secret draft already written, but it's really just somebody writing some stuff down on a notepad. So they'll take the secret draft, convert that over into a working draft. It'll be a little more formal, but it'll still be ugly. We will not see it. That document will not be disclosed publicly. I'll probably get a copy. I'm sure I will. But I'm not going to publish it because it'll probably be, ISO really doesn't want me to publish it. And I don't think it'll be that interesting, to be honest with you. That'll likely be commented and then approved to proceed by March of 2024. Once that happens, they move to a committee draft, the CD. Now, that's more formal. That's actually going to start to look like the actual standard, the final product, but not quite. It'll still be pretty rough around the edges. It'll probably have line numbering and some other formatting things in there. I expect that to be done by around April, maybe May of 2024, and then reviewed and approved by August of 2024. That will be released publicly. I believe they put that out for public comment. And I believe that one should be free. So you'll probably get a copy of the CD at some point, and you'll be able to see that. After that, then they go to the Draft International Standard DIS. That'll be sold on the ISO store. So I tell companies to hold off on buying it, but everybody buys it anyway. It'll be fairly close to the final product, if not fairly close, about 90% close to it, the DIS. I expect that to be drafted by around December of 2024 and then commented and approved by 2025, March, let's say February and March of that year. And again, you'll be able to see that. You'll probably have to buy it. Companies will want to probably jump on that because the language that appears in the DIS is almost guaranteed to be what appears in the final version, but not quite. There can still be some minor changes. And you don't want to design your system around it yet, but that's what companies tend to do. They get it and they start making their changes to the DIS. You will start to see the consultants working on TC-176 already issuing books, starting to sell books, etc., based on the DIS. So Jack West, Laurie Hunt, all those guys, all those folks will be publishing books. Don't buy them yet. You wait until the standard's published because they're going to trick you into buying a second edition of their book when the standard is finalized. So I tell everybody, hold off on that before you start buying any books. The next step is the FDIS, the Final Draft International Standard, and they could skip it. ISO rules allow them to skip that step entirely, except they don't think that's going to happen. The only way to skip the FDIS, which means they would go right from that DIS version and just sell it and make it, that's the final thing, you go buy it, right, as the final copy. The only way they're allowed to do that is if there's very few comments and just overwhelming consensus that the DIS is good. And that's just not going to happen with ISO 9001. Too many people have opinions. It's too controversial. Never going to happen. So we're going to see an FDIS, the Final Draft International Standard. You will see very few changes from the DIS version. You'll see some, but not many. Most of that will be formatting and grammar. I figure maybe they'll have that finished by March or April of 2025. That has to undergo formal voting at that point. That's the big final vote to make this a finished standard that is published and ready for sale. So they take their time with that voting. There's a lot of commenting, etc., that has to be processed. Maybe June, July 2025 at the earliest. That FDIS will be identical to the final standard, barring maybe some punctuation. And then you'll see the international standard published, the IS version. That's the final one. That is the official one. No longer a draft. It's fully published. Let's say that maybe they get that done by July of 2025, and that'll be available for sale on the ISO web store and around the world, etc. That'll be the one you want to build your system around. The other ones I tell you to hold off on. Until it's an IS version, it's not the law yet. So I would wait for that. And just be very careful about buying books from people who are selling you implementation strategies based on the drafts, because it's kind of lame. Now, also this graphic on the right here, I know you can't see it very well, but it is available on the website, the Oxbridge website. So if you want to, click it, and it kind of shows the timeline. Will there be slippage? So my estimations here are based on if everything goes smooth, number one, and number two, if ISO does what they did last time with the last version of ISO 9001, and they break a couple of the rules that are in place. One of those is translation. The rules say that there are supposed to be separate periods to allow non-English speaking countries to translate these drafts before they vote on them. With the last version of ISO 9001, ISO did something really scummy, and they said, no, translate it and vote at the same time. They did that for two reasons. One, to increase the speed so they could sell the standard faster, but also because they didn't really want people commenting on the standard anyway, because that slows it down. So if they can isolate all the non-English speaking countries and screw them, right, and say, okay, you guys, you've got to figure it out. You translate it, but you got to vote no matter what. They wind up voting on the English language draft, and they don't understand it, so they just approve it. ISO's relying on that. Guarantee they're going to do that this time. There's no way that they are going to split, which with their procedures require a translation step and then a voting step. They're going to merge those up as they did last time. So that's why this is so fast. However, there could be other problems. Maybe some countries object. Maybe there's some other slippage. Maybe there's, it is possible you could see two committee drafts, CD1, CD2. That would delay things by at least 6 months, maybe a year more. But if all things go smoothly, and if ISO really cracks the whip and does not allow any deviations, and also breaks their rules on translation, you'll probably see it around July of 2025. And that's all I've got. So that's right where we're at with this standard. what we can expect. There's no idea of the content yet. As I said, there's a secret draft, but there's no working draft that's been written yet, so no one's seen it yet. We do expect some 2 levels of changes. Annex SL text will be updated, and you can see the Annex SL text. ISO has it on their website, so you can see some of the changes that will be expected. And then ISO is going to add a few new things into the standard. We're just not sure if they're dramatic or not. We don't know. So far, too early to know what the content will actually be, but that gives you an idea of the timeline. So, with all that, be sure that you go on LinkedIn and follow me there. Lots of stuff happening over there, and you can usually get information pretty quick, but the fastest way to get the information is to subscribe. Go to the oxbridge.com website, subscribe. This way you'll be getting every week, you'll get the headline update. Sometimes I put out an emergency one if something really dramatic happens. You're not added to any spam lists or anything like that. All right, that's it. Stay posted here on YouTube as well. Thanks.